Hi team, today's training on the new 1 to 4 family contract is all about this bottom part of the page 1 that talks about these outstanding leases. So if a seller is selling to a buyer a piece of real property and it is subject to a lease, then we are going to fill out this information here. And all of this is new information. Well, some of it was already somewhat noted, but it's definitely new information and definitely in the way that it's presented. So here's what the seller is saying is that the seller is not aware of any other leases except for the things that they check on the boxes here. In addition to that, it says after the effective date of the contract, the seller may not without the buyer's written consent create any new leases, change any leases, or convey any interest in the property. If the seller is under contract to convey this property to a buyer, they should not be trying to change what they are actually conveying. Now, the leases that could be outstanding for a seller when they have a house listed for sale. First of all, potentially a residential lease. If there is a tenant in the property and your seller is currently a landlord, this property will be subject to this residential lease. There is an additional form called the Addendum regarding residential leases. You will be required to use that form, and that form is going to give your buyer a couple of options. Number one, are they buying the house with the tenant in place and the tenant's planning to remain? Number two, is the property being sold and the lease will be terminated prior to execution of the closing documents. So prior to closing, that tenant might move out. And this addendum is going to address all of those different options and what might be the direction you're going to go. More commonly, you're probably going to run into a fixture lease. A fixture lease might be on the property where a seller has purchased some sort of home improvement item that was a big ticket item that they do not own outright. This could be solar panels on a property that the seller, the current owner, is making payments on and is under a lease with. Could be a propane tank, could be a water softener, maybe a security system. There might be some other opportunity for a seller to have included an improvement to the property that they did not pay in full for yet. If that is the case and there is a fixture lease in place, you will need to check item 4B here. And additionally, you will need to attach the addendum regarding fixture leases. And that addendum regarding fixture leases is going to give several options. Number one, does the seller plan to leave the items and transfer those leases to the buyer? Option number two, does the seller plan to remove those items? And if they do remove the items, please know that they must repair any damage that the property sustains. Please also just be aware, if your buyer is going to consider keeping a property with a fixture lease in place, it's very, very important that your buyer look at that lease in advance, make sure that they are agreeable to all of the terms, make sure they understand any transfer fees, the longevity of the lease, all of those kinds of things before moving forward. And then last but not least is item 4C here. If there is a natural resource lease on the property, such as an oil and gas lease, mineral lease, and so on and so forth. And if there is in fact a natural resource lease, as you can see, there's a couple of other check boxes here. One talking about whether or not the seller has delivered that information to the buyer, or number two, that the seller has not delivered it and when they might deliver that information. So please just be aware with this new form, there are additional addendums that might be needed. And as you're moving forward, again, if you have any questions, you have a specific client request or client need, feel free to call me anytime and I'll make sure to help you through it.